Hello everyone, here is everything I believe you need to know before Black Ops 6 Zombies if you care about or want to learn about the lore of this over decades long journey. This is as condensed as I could make this while still keeping in all the details that I think may or may not come up in the future of zombies, or help explain some of the more important characters. First, there is the Aether story. This is the majority of the zombie story from World at War all the way to Black Ops 4 where it ended. To simplify what happens in that story as much as possible, there are three major factions that you need to know about from the Aether story. There's the human faction, the Keeper faction, and the Apothicon faction. Firstly, the humans are self-explanatory. They are residents of Earth just trying to stay alive and remain in existence, while the other two factions fight one another. I'll get into why later, but think of the Humanity faction as the boot soldiers for the Keeper faction, as the Keepers do not like to interfere directly with the free will of humanity. The main players you care about from this faction are Dr. Edward Richtofen and Samantha Maxis. Richtofen is the main protagonist / occasional antagonist in the Aether storyline. Through sheer scientific will, egotistic maniacism, and a little help from the Keeper faction's leader, he traveled across dimensions and time itself with his own group of human warriors in an attempt to, at first, help the Keeper faction, but then later fight even against them in order to save humanity as a whole. Samantha, or just Maxis, is the most innocent person in the Aether timeline. She was simply a little lost girl dragged into things well beyond her responsibility. Corrupted by the Apothicon faction and their dimension known as the Dark Aether, she would do evil and twisted things across many dimensions, all in the name of simply rejoining her father and returning to some sort of normalcy. Secondly, the Keeper faction. They are a group of warriors that have existed since the start of the universe. Their goals seemed altruistic at first. They seek to keep the status quo in the multiverse, and they will do anything and everything they can to ensure that the Apothicon faction stays banished in the Dark Aether and maintain that status quo. Again, I'll touch on what the Dark Aether is in a moment, but the Keepers reside in the Aether. It is a dimension above all, and Earth has many different pathways that connect to the Aether. Their leader is Dr. Monty. Think of him as basically God. He created the universe in which humanity resides. Lastly, the Apothicon faction is a group of rebels who seek to overthrow Dr. Monty and the Keepers. Think of them like demons and Keepers' angels, but a bit more eldritch. They rebelled because they believe that there is order in chaos, and that they should be the ones to control the multiverse, and that Dr. Monty is not correct in his methods, and that power belongs to them. The Dark Aether, the dimension in which they reside, is a dimension that effectively acts as a garbage dump for our multiverse. It exists outside of our reality, and because of that and other unknown reasons, the Dark Aether corrupts any and all who reside in it. This includes the leader of this faction, the Shadow Man. Think of him as the devil. The Shadow Man and the Apothicons all used to be Keepers before being corrupted by the Dark Aether and the power it holds. Power enough to even overthrow Dr. Monty. However, their attempted rebellion failed, and they were banished to the Dark Aether. For untold millennia, a cycle of time continued where the Apothicons would break free by corrupting certain humans, using their power to communicate across dimensions, and send fragments of the Dark Aether, known as Element 115, to humanity. Humanity and the Keepers would work together to reseal them, and the Dr. Monty would reset the timeline in an attempt to resolve any paradoxes created by humanity's time-traveling shenanigans, and to hopefully one day create paradise, or as he calls it, his perfect world. Well, one cycle, Richtofen was late. That was it. And it changed everything. This single timeline led to rebellion for humanity. Richtofen himself thought that he wants to live, to be free of these factions in this cycle. But he couldn't do it alone. With Nikolai Belinsky, another member of his crew, taking over as leader, they were able to overthrow Monty and the Shadow Man and banish both of them to the Dark Aether. But they took it a step further. They knew that this banishment wouldn't last forever, and so using the devices created by all three factions millennia ago, they did four things. First, they created a brand new universe. One completely free of multiversal shenanigans and Dark Aether corruption. Second, they banished any and everything from their multiverse, or for simplicity's sake, everything from the Aether storyline. This includes the aforementioned Dr. Monty and Shadow Man, but also the entirety of the Aether, the multiverse, everything. And then, third, our group of warriors killed themselves. They themselves are bonded to this universe, the Aether and the Dark Aether, so if they were to go to this new world, they would inevitably corrupt it with their own existence. And finally, the last thing they did was send Richtofen and Samantha to the new universe. Although iterations of Richtofen were killed because, as previously mentioned, they were corrupted, they were part of that old universe, Richtofen and Maxis had their souls gathered previously from when they were still children. They are still innocent and free from this dimension's corruption in this state, and so they were able to leave the old Aether storyline and into this new one. And that brings us to this new storyline. This new storyline is appropriately called the Dark Aether storyline, and it contains everything starting from Cold War Zombies onward. Now, I say appropriate because despite our original timeline's efforts, the Dark Aether is slowly breaking free due to humanity's own machinations. Maxis, in this timeline, is now an adult and helps a group known as Requiem to reseal the Dark Aether across the world, but not without herself being sent into and banished into the Dark Aether. This is a death sentence for most, but whether it was because she was Samantha Maxis, or because she was from a timeline which no longer exists, she thrived in the Dark Aether and gained untold power and was seemingly corrupted. However, we have no confirmation on this as of yet. She is sealed in the Dark Aether because she willingly went into it in order to save humanity and seal an all-powerful being known as the Forsaken. After she did this, it was revealed that someone was working behind the scenes, a man known as the director of Project Janus. We do not know much of what this project does, but with the director's power, he seals Maxis and the Forsaken, and has all of the Requiem team arrested and all records wiped. It was then revealed that the director had been Richtofen as an adult all along. Far into the future now, it is revealed that Requiem Project was able to create a human with Maxis' DNA, effectively Maxis' daughter. Her name is Ava. She isn't too important yet in the story, but she gained powers similar to a mother due to future shenanigans, and at the end of Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, seems to have been sent into the past by the Dark Aether to the Liberty Falls facility where Richtofen currently is. See, she is susceptible to the Dark Aether due to who her mother is, so she seemingly, at least so far, acts as a bridge for the Dark Aether and why it is able to communicate with her so easily. Now, back to the past where Richtofen currently is, / the director. With the most recent trailers for Black Ops 6, it is shown that Richtofen is haunted by nightmares. And at the same time, it seems Maxis and Requiem are breaking free of their containment. Will Maxis be evil or just want revenge against Richtofen? We don't know. Where did Richtofen go? We don't know. What will Requiem team do? We don't know. But that is all the info that you need to know going into Black Ops 6 Zombies, and I'll leave you with just one speculation, one theory that I have. See, before Ava is sent seemingly into the past, we see someone from the Dark Aether in her mirror. Not Samantha, but someone else. Someone with a hat. See, from the previous timeline, the Shadow Man has one very defining physical trait: his hat. However, I don't think this is just the Shadow Man. See, Dr. Monty was also banished to the Dark Aether, and he has always been stronger than the Shadow Man. So I theorize that we will see this mysterious figure with a scarf in the near future, which is Dr. Monty's main defining physical trait. I believe that both the Shadow Man and Dr. Monty have fully merged over untold millennia in the Dark Aether, since they are now both corrupted and both want out. We have seen evidence of other entities merging before through Ordas and other creatures found in Cold War and Vanguard Zombies. Now, I call this merged entity Dr. Man because it's funny, but Dr. Man wants out, and I think that is what will be happening in Black Ops 6, if not directly, then in the background. Now, obviously, there are many, many, many characters and story beats that I left out if you're at all familiar with the storyline, but currently they seem kind of unnecessary, so I only included the things that I think might come up or might quickly come up. But will some of them become relevant in the future as more info comes out? Only time travel will tell.